In Japan, which modernized through the Meiji Restoration, the Shinsengumi was the last group to embody the samurai spirit. The Shinsengumi have appeared in popular anime like Rurouni Kenshin and Gintama, and there are even dramas in Japan named Shinsengumi. In 1863, Japan was going through a period of transition. At that time, Japan was divided between the shogunate supporting Sabaku faction and the Sono-joi faction, which advocated for supporting the emperor and rejecting foreign influence. On the surface, it appeared that the two factions were evenly matched, but in reality, the situation was gradually tipping in favor of the emperor. At that time, Shogun Tokugawa Iemochi traveled to Kyoto, the political center and capital of Japan, to pledge his allegiance to the emperor and commit to rejecting foreign influence. However, Kyoto was plagued by constant violence and assassinations between the Sono-joi and Sabaku factions, making it extremely dangerous for the young shogun to travel there without a proper escort. To address this, a samurai group was organized, led by Kiyokawa Hachiro, to escort and protect the shogun. These individuals, who came together without regard for social status, were known as the Roshigumi. However, it's important to note that Hachiro, who organized the Roshigumi, was aligned with the Sono-joi faction. Although they were tasked with protecting the shogun, Hachiro and his followers actually wanted to align themselves with the emperor rather than the shogun. Soon after, he was assassinated by the Mimawari Gumi, who was responsible for maintaining order in the city. With Hachiro's assassination, his organization, the Roshigumi, was disbanded, leaving only 24 swordsmen remaining. Among the Roshigumi, the 24 swordsmen who remained loyal to the shogun voluntarily stayed in the Mibu district of Kyoto and formed the Mibu Roshigumi. These are the very individuals who would become known as the Shinsengumi, referred to as the Wolves of Mibu. The Wolves of Mibu, after coming under the command of Matsudaira Katamori, who was responsible for maintaining order in Kyoto, began to be known as the Shinsengumi. The Shinsengumi's primary mission was to protect Kyoto. The members of the Shinsengumi were mostly highly loyal to the shogun, but there were still some who held on to the Sono-joi faction's belief in serving the emperor. Originally, the Shinsengumi's first commander, Serizawa Kamo, who led the formation of the Mibu Roshigumi, was known to be from the Mito region, and that region had deep ties to the Sono-joi faction. Since the Shinsengumi initially accepted members without conditions, it was almost inevitable that such conflicts would arise. The internal discord within the Shinsengumi was a constant issue. Eventually, Hijikata Toshizo, the vice commander of Shinsengumi, initiated a purge to protect the organization. During this purge, the founding leader, Serizawa Kamo, was eliminated. As time passed, in 1864, a major event occurred that would stir up great upheaval in modern Japanese history, and Shinsengumi was no exception. The Sono-joi faction was plotting in the Ikadaya Inn, planning to assassinate Matsudaira Katamori, the head of Kyoto's security, and kidnap Emperor Komei. As mentioned earlier, the Sono-joi faction was dedicated to supporting the emperor. However, those conspiring at the Ikadaya Inn were among the most desperate members of the faction, coming from the Choshu region. With no immediate refuge and the emperor himself seemingly inclined towards negotiating with the shogunate, these desperate individuals lost all sense of reason. Hijikata Toshizo, the deputy commander of the Shinsengumi, closely monitored suspicious activities in Kyoto. During his observations, he captured an individual named Furutaka Shuntaro, who provided valuable information about the Sono-joi faction's plot. Upon receiving the news, the Shinsengumi, led by their commander Isami Kondo, assembled a team of 4 samurai and set off towards the Ikadaya Inn. The 4 Shinsengumi members, having cautiously entered the inn, began their battle against the dozens of samurai inside. In reality, it was less a battle and more akin to a massacre. In the battle, the Shinsengumi lost only one of their members, while the conspirators suffered 7 deaths and 24 injuries, with the survivors taken into custody. After this incident, the Shinsengumi, having successfully thwarted the conspiracies of the anti-shogunate Sono-joi faction, began to receive full support from the shogunate. With the backing of the shogunate, Shinsengumi's leader, Kondo Isami, gained the authority to make political statements and exert influence. Following this incident, the forces from the Choshu region, who had been completely sidelined in Kyoto, launched an attack on the city in an attempt to challenge the shogunate and overturn the situation. The rebellion, known as the Kinmon Incident, was eventually suppressed by the shogunate forces, leading the Choshu region factions to ultimately decide to retreat. During this period, the Choshu region factions set fires to buy time for their retreat. The flames spread to residential areas, resulting in the destruction of around 40,000 houses. As a result of this incident, the Choshu region factions were branded as traitors, and the Tokugawa shogunate even began planning a campaign to subjugate Choshu. Following the Kinmon incident, as tensions began to rise between the shogunate and the imperial forces, Sakamoto Ryoma was assassinated. Ryoma was a samurai and politician who had a tremendous impact on modern Japanese history, often ranking among the top historical figures admired by Japanese people. The exact perpetrators of this incident remain unknown, but it is widely suspected that the attack was orchestrated by the Sabaku faction, which supported the shogunate. At this time, the shogunate was losing ground to the imperial faction. Additionally, the newly appointed shogun, Tokugawa Yoshinobu, relinquished his governing authority to the emperor, leading to the establishment of a new government centered around the emperor in Japan. The new government then engaged in a civil war with the shogunate, aiming to consolidate their power. In two civil wars, the shogunate forces and their allies, including the Shinsengumi, suffered devastating defeats at the hands of the new government's troops. The new government then engaged in a civil war with the remaining shogunate forces, seeking to consolidate its power. In two separate conflicts, the shogunate army and the Shinsengumi suffered devastating defeats at the hands of the new government forces. The Shinsengumi continued to show their shortcomings in combat, rather than in assassination. As a result, doubts about their leader, Kondo Isami's capabilities began to surface, leading some members and officers to defect. As the war continued, the Shinsengumi and the Tokugawa forces suffered repeated defeats. Eventually, most of the Shinsengumi members, including their leader Kondo Isami, were captured and taken as prisoners. After being captured, the leader Kondo Isami initially hid his identity, but he was eventually discovered and executed by beheading. While Kondo's end lacked the honor typically associated with the samurai spirit, other original members of the Shinsengumi continued to fight valiantly until the end. The Shinsengumi's deputy commander, Hijikata Toshizo, fought bravely until the very end and met a valiant death in battle. Ultimately, with the surrender of the shogunate forces, the war came to a close and the Shinsengumi was disbanded. The dramatic story of the Shinsengumi, Japan's last samurai group during the final days of the Edo period, draws to a close, signaling the end of an era in Japanese history. That's all for today. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell. Thank you for watching.